In this video, I'm going to show you how to remove English ivy and other types of thick-growing ivy from the trunks of trees. Find out how, coming up next. What's going on, guys? Kendall here for Renos for Pros and Joes, helping you simplify the renovation and remodeling process. On this channel, we do renovation tip and strategy videos, as well as hands-on product tool and gear reviews. Today, I'm going to be showing you something a little bit different. We're out in nature today, and I'm going to show you how to remove thick vines like English ivy from the trunks of trees. For those that don't know, English ivy is an evergreen vine that is frequently used as an ornamental plant for various types of landscape applications, including blocking weeds from growing in flower beds. And in some applications, it's also used to grow on buildings in order to increase the building's protection from the environment and help regulate temperature, essentially making it cooler in the summertime and warmer in the wintertime. However, we're not here to talk about all that today. We're talking about how to kill it. And the reason we're talking about that is this is a very invasive type of vine, and when it's not controlled, it can grow rampant in a very short period of time, and when it does, it becomes very difficult to get under control. Now, typically, you may see English ivy creeping along the ground, and as I stated before, even in this state, it's difficult to control. But once it gets into the trees, it can just take over the entire trunk of the tree and just climb to the top, to the point where you can't even recognize the type of tree that's growing. And this is a dangerous situation because over time, the ivy will suffocate out and kill the tree, which could lead to the tree falling and things like that. So if you look behind me here, this is actually an oak tree, and it is completely covered in several types of ivy, and I'm going to show you how to remove that today. We're going to be using 4 different methods to do this. All of them are manual, so no chemicals will be involved today. Without any further ado, let me show you exactly how covered this tree is in vines. This is an example of how this ivy can grow when left unchecked. If we look in here closely, all you can see is vines. So all these are the root systems from the vines going all the way around the tree here. This is tree. If we look closely, you can see there's bark on the tree there, but there's vines everywhere. The vines have literally taken over the entire tree to the point that you can't see that. And it goes without saying that that's very unhealthy for the tree. So as I stated, we're going to be using 3 different methods. I will show you 3 different methods. As severe as our English ivy infestation is here today, we're probably only going to be using 1, but I will at least demonstrate the other 3 as we get to that point. So stay tuned. Okay guys, we're going to run through 4 different techniques. The first technique is going to be probably your least favorite, which is going to be just using your hands. So this technique is best used when you're catching the problem relatively early. So if the vines are growing up the trees already, but they have not completely wrapped around and covered up the entire trunk of the tree, sometimes it's easier to just pull them away with your hands if you've got relatively strong hands and fingers. As you can see on this tree behind me, that's not going to work out too well. It'll take us too much time. So, however, I will say that some pieces are coming off. But in the end, you may still have to come back and use your hands once a lot of this stuff has died after you've used some of the techniques that I'm going to show you. So just keep that in mind. But the first technique is going to be definitely to use your hands. As you can see, just in that little short period of time, we've cleared away enough for you to see the trunk of the tree already. Admittedly, this is not the ideal technique, and if you're going to use your hands to do this, I recommend that you clean up as much of the ivy as possible as you're removing it, because as I said, it is very invasive and it can quickly begin to grow and sprout and crawl just from the clippings that are left on the ground. So keep that in mind. Okay guys, so I just showed you the first technique, which is using your hands, which is for lighter problems. The next step up is going to be to use shears of some sort. I've got 2 different types with me here in hand today, and what you can do is get in close and cut away. If you look in here, and you can see how I've got this, I went ahead and put my blade in underneath this, and then I just cut there, do that, cut, cut, cut. This is a pretty good technique if you've got a moderate problem, but as I said before, this is relatively extreme here. So even though it's cutting, if you get yourself a good pair of pruning shears like this, it can cut through a lot of things that you'd be surprised that they can cut through. But admittedly, this is a much slower technique than some of the other techniques that we're going to go over right now. So if you don't have anything stronger than this, or your budget won't allow, you can use some pruning shears like this. It's just going to work you a lot more than using something a little bit larger and more time efficient. So I'll have links to both of these products in the description. Let's move on to the next technique, which is, you guessed it, bigger shears. So if you're looking here on this tree, I'm just gonna be pulling away some of my ivy, guys, and keep in mind, you don't wanna leave this ivy down here on the ground if you're trying to clean up your landscape area, because this stuff can begin to grow just from the clippings and things that we're dropping. So if we look in here, we can see that we've got even bigger vines, which is the main reason why I upgraded to something larger. So if you see that I've got it wedged in here like this, and we just squeeze, okay? We just cut that piece out. And when you're doing these techniques, we're going to cut out sections here. So we're going to probably cut out at least a couple of feet. So we want to cut out high here, an area that we can reach with our hands without stretching too much. And then we also want to cut down. And ideally, we want to cut it all the way down to the ground and have it so that we are clear. So if we're 3 to 4 feet down to the ground with no vines on here, that's fine. At a minimum, we want to cut so that we have a gap here to make sure that we've gone through and been thorough, and that their vines are no longer able to reach the top of the tree or continue growing. It will take some time for this stuff to die, but this is typically going to be enough to kill it. Once it is dead, it is going to take on a brown color, and sometimes it does take an extended period of time for it to actually fall and come out of the trees. At that point in time, when it does turn brown, you can periodically come out and check, and sometimes you'll be able to simply grab a big section of the vines and pull it back away from the tree, and a lot of times you'll be able to get, you know, multiple feet of it come down out of the tree. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So as we stated here, we're kind of moving up as we go around this tree, and our vines are getting larger. So these shears are pretty good. You can remember we were just using the smaller ones, and we're kind of continuing to work here, and this is working us a little bit less here as we're cutting through these sections. We're kind of clearing it off. As I said, guys, you're still going to be using your hands to do this, unfortunately. Better to catch this stuff early before it gets in the trees, so that you can avoid having to do this all together. And we don't use chemicals on these type of scenarios, because the chemicals is going to easily transfer onto the trunk of the tree as well as the root system, and can kill the tree in some instances. So we want to play it safe and do everything manual. That way we can help ensure that we can preserve the life of our trees. So, as you can see here, it's a slow process, but we're continuing to work here. We can see tree trunk now. If you look here in this area, before, remember, it was completely covered up, but now we can at least see some of the trunk. So we're just gonna keep working and keep working at it until we have everything off. So third technique is going to be using our big pruning shears, jumbos if you will. They almost look like bolt cutters, but they're not. I'll have a link to these in the description as well. Okay, so our last technique is going to be for more extreme scenarios, and this is a good technique if you already have this tool. If you don't, I would not recommend going out and purchasing one just because it's cost prohibitive unless you're already in the market for one. And that tool is a reciprocating saw. This is a battery-powered reciprocating saw because that's what I have today. A corded one will work just fine as long as the area that you're working with can be reached by extension cord, or you've got some type of generator in order to provide you with some power. So the next piece of it is you want to make sure that you've got a long blade that's got an aggressive tooth pattern here. So I'll include links to this particular reciprocating saw. Admittedly, this is going to be major overkill for this type of project, and this particular one is going to be really cost prohibitive. So there are definitely cheaper options if you've got a problem that is not going to be realistic for you to cut away with the jumbo shears. So I'm going to put our blade in here and jump right into it and see what we got here. So we're going to be using the same technique that we used with our jumbo shears, but this is just going to give us a quicker cut there. We can actually even use that jumbo blade to just peel it away. So you want to be careful when we're doing this to try to not cut into the tree. So we're just wanting to put the blade against the root long enough to cut through. And this, if you got a good blade that's sharp, it'll only take a few seconds for you to cut through. As I said, guys, in a lot of instances, you may have to use more than one of these techniques. So the pruning shears are probably a must-have regardless. And you can try and remove larger sections of the vines if you choose to. I'm showing you in smaller sections because it's easier to pull away and clear. Once we've got a larger space cleared out, we can kind of go ahead and pull things away. If you see what I'm doing here, I'm pulling away once I can actually get my hands on the vines. So now we're still back to our manual method again, even though we're using tools. So basically we want to use whatever methods that we can in order to pick an area and start and clear away. And once we've got a small area cleared away and we begin to pull our vines away, we can use our hands to pull the rest of it away, and then allow nature to take its course, and then the rest of these vines will die and then slowly wither away and fall out of the trees. Once again, you can use your manual method to pull down your withered vines at that point in time. Okay guys, that's going to conclude this video. Unfortunately, it has begun to rain as we're out here shooting, so I will come back and show you a follow-up of what this section of this tree looks like once we have it cleared off. Alright guys, I wanted to stop to give you a quick update. As you can see, I've switched over to some tools that I didn't discuss in the preview or beginning part of the video. I have a small crowbar or pry bar and a hammer. As you can see, these are working like butter. But I do want to show you on the back side of this tree that there's an area that has newer growth vines on it, and I'm still having to go back to my hands to get it off. I'm going to show you because it's still green and it doesn't look like the vines that you saw me cutting in the beginning. So check it out. Okay guys, so as you see here, this vine growth is still green. If you pan down a little bit, you can see that there's some vines in the back that are a little bit darker, but you know, these are really new growth, and it's just much easier to just pull them off by hand. So even though the hammer and the pry bar are working excellent, you're still gonna have to use your hands to get some of this stuff off to do a complete job on it. So that's enough of the preview. You can see that my stuff is coming off real clean and smooth. So let me keep at it. I just wanted to show you guys how thick some of these vines are. Hard to find a good place to show you the thickness of it, but it's like a tree. It's like a tree on the inside. If you look at that, it's thick. It's like it's sticking around as an adult wrist right here. But just wanted to show you this is the thickest piece that I pulled off, and I've definitely seen it much thicker than this. Okay guys, I've got it peeled down pretty good now. I just wanted to give you guys a quick run around of what it looks like. So let me show you how we look so far. So if we look here around the base of the tree, you can see that I've basically cut and trimmed it back. Sorry about that. Take my glove off there. As you can see here, going around the base of the tree, and you can see that we've cleared all of that ivy away. So if you look up here, we got it picked pretty clean here all the way around. Some little fuzz and stuff like that, nitpick stuff still on there, but that's good. So I mean, that means that we've got, this is about 5 feet up the tree, guys, that has no vines all the way up. Now, admittedly, there are definitely still live vines all the way around the base of this tree. Those also need to be pulled away and removed. But that's a topic for another day. Remember, this one's called How to Remove Ivy from Trees. You got to come back and watch the second installment to see how to remove it from the ground. So in any case, hopefully you guys found this video informative. Thanks for watching it to the end, so that I can tell you what the best tools are for the job, which are a pry bar and a hammer. And I'll have links for those things for you in the description box as well. However, I will say this, there will be instances when you come across trees that are going to be thicker, going to have thicker vines than what we just saw. I know some of those got pretty thick, basically it's probably as thick around as your wrist, but they can get much thicker than that. You know, 2, 3, 4 times that thick. So in those situations, the reciprocating saw is probably going to be your best bet, because you're not going to be able to pry those roots away the way I did, and be able to get the same type of leverage on it, because they're going to be attached to the trees so much a better bond. But in any case, I showed you the tools that we used. Keep in mind now, different strokes for different folks, and you may not be able to just grab those vines and yank them off the way that I did. So cutting and using something like the pruning shears to cut into small pieces still may be the best option for you. As I said, I don't want to make it seem like pulling that off of the tree was extremely easy. You're definitely going to get a workout doing it. You see I'm sweating. But in any case, we've got our pruning shears as a recap. Still a great tool. And we've got two different types of those. Pruning shears, this is what I use to cut through the really big vines. There were some that I broke through with the pry bar and hammer, but that was probably more effort than I really needed to put forth when I could have just cut through initially with this and then pried them away. Finally, reciprocating saw. This is probably is overkill, but I know we're gonna have some people who really like tools out there and like to use tools whenever they get a chance to, so this will be an opportunity to do that. So whatever reciprocating saw you have, I'm sure will do the trick as long as you're able to get power to it. Also, one more thing. As it pertains to reciprocating saws, you can have the top saw and still have it not cut very good if you don't have a good blade on it. So I was gnawing at mine with a pretty beat up blade. Still got a little bit life left in it, but these I could have used a newer version of that blade. And this will just cut directly through all the vines. So just another thing to keep in mind. I want to get you guys set up and let you know all the options so you can make a decision on how you want to proceed. As I said, guys, hopefully you found this informative. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also visit renosforprosandjoes.com and check out the blog there. See you on the next one. Peace.